I'm going to call a meeting to order. If you would do the roll call, please.
Mayor Breeden.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Heyman.
Here.
Mr. Maurer.
Here.
5 here. We have a quorum.
And we are going to approve the agenda with items 6 and 7. 6 and 7, and we're adding a, and Keith, would you give us the description of that?
That's the In God We Trust, and,
Yeah.
and they,
Wastewater.
and
Yeah.
they, okay.
And that's at your request, is my understanding.
Yes, correct.
Regarding the item to be added to closed session, we currently have 3 unidentified cases. I need to add a 4th unidentified case because this it is because we've obtained information that is relevant to a topic, and we would like to take or have the board give us direction, City Council give us direction before the next regular meeting. So for that reason, I'm going to ask that you add it. I know I can't get into more details because that is a topic covered by attorney-client privilege, and the whole notion of that closed session is that identifying it will prejudice the city's ability to serve process potentially or other aspects of the litigation. So with that, I would encourage you to add that item. It requires a 4/5 vote.
Okay, so we will do so.
So I move
deleting
approval.
one, adding one, and a motion.
I move approval with the changes mentioned.
Second.
Please vote.
Oh, you gotta move.
We got something new? Oh, sorry. Stupid.
5 ayes. Motion carries.
Okay, I see no public, so I would assume there is no comment on closed session, so we
Public
will go to
comment?
closed session.
My phone's gonna go dead.
And then what about?
Okay, at 6:04, I'm going to call a meeting to order. And roll call, please.
You already did that.
We did the roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did do that. Okay. The city, we're calling it, so if you will stand and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like us to just stand for a minute. Keep in mind that we are a community. We may agree with each other. We may disagree with each other, but we are a community. And I'd like us to just remember that, and we'll take silence for a few seconds. Thank you. Okay, Keith, you have some things to report?
I do. And Madam Mayor, I think we talked about making an announcement at the beginning of the meeting to make it clear that we changed the agenda a
Right.
bit, and we have pulled items, I believe there's 6 and 7 off the agenda. Those will be tabled for a subsequent meeting. I need to give a report regarding our closed session. The board met in closed session to discuss 4 items which are unidentified litigation. The agenda indicated 3 items. A 4th item was added as a need arose item. The item is undisclosed, so there's nothing more I can say about that. The board received, I keep saying the board, the City Council received a report from the city attorney on 3 of those items. The 4th item will be continued until after the meeting, and then we'll come out and make any further announcements about perhaps about anything that happened in there. But as to now, there is no reportable action regarding those items. Madam Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you, sir. Council, if you'll join me up at the podium, we have a presentation
turn on that mic?
Yeah, it's on.
There you go.
This is a proclamation of the City of Ridgecrest, California, proclaiming June 2019 as Alzheimer's Awareness and Action Month. Whereas Alzheimer's and dementia diseases tragically robs individuals of memories, independence, well-being, and long-term health, and whereas there are currently more than 670,000 Californians living with the burdens of Alzheimer's, as well as more than 5.8 million suffering nationwide, and whereas the number of individuals, family, and caregivers shouldering the burdens of the eventually fatal disease in the Indian Wells Valley and the city of Ridgecrest is growing dramatically, and whereas with early detection, diagnosis, and improved access to support services, treatment programs, and research trials, local Alzheimer's sufferers can fully participate in improving their prospects of healthier and happier futures, and whereas expanded brain disease research programs, improved diagnostic protocols, and more available treatment and support programs are urgently needed for all Alzheimer's and dementia sufferers, and whereas a community that encourages awareness, compassion, and commitment to a common cause produces most positive outcome in any challenge facing its citizens, and whereas in recognition of local individuals, families, caregivers, and friends dealing with the devastating effects of Alzheimer's, dementia, and other brain illnesses, as well as researchers searching for causes and cures, and educational programs and support service provided under the auspices of the Alzheimer's Association, California Southline Chapter. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, California does hereby proclaim the month of June 2019 as Alzheimer's Awareness and Action Month, and encourages all citizens of our community to actively participate in raising awareness, understanding, and support of individuals, families, support givers, and researchers facing the challenges of Alzheimer's disease and its early detection and treatment. Proclaimed this 19th day of June 2019 by the mayor and the 4 city council members. I just want to personally say dementia has personally touched my life, and that my mother-in-law eventually succumbed to that, so I'm sure it's touched a lot of people in the world, and especially in our area. So I present this proclamation to you. And you want to say anything?
I'm sure I'll say something.
Okay, you have the mic. Try to stay close to the mic.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Susan Bodner, and I'm the Kern County Ambassador for Congressman McCarthy for the Alzheimer's Association. And I just wanted to let everyone know that it is a national health crisis. Right now, the Alzheimer's Association estimates that every 65 seconds someone develops Alzheimer's disease. It's the 3rd largest killer here in the state of California, and it's the 6th largest in the United States. Judy Ardre is here from the Alzheimer's Association with us, and Judy does come over and does monthly meetings for us here. So if anybody is interested in finding out anything about those, please let us know. And also, I just wanted to let everyone know that we're doing our first inauguration walk here in Ridgecrest, and it'll be on October 26th. So please, we're looking for teams. Just get in touch with us, and we would be happy to have you join us. Yeah, there's information on the back and the tables if anyone wants to pick them up. Okay? Thank you so much. We appreciate this.
You ultimately like to say thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for all your hard work.
I didn't know we got to shake their hands. Thank you so much.
They would like to have a picture with all of us. So
Fabulous.
in here. Remember, let's get a little closer to you. Yeah, angle again. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. Okay, this item now is on public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time pursuant to the Brown Act. The City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Does anyone wish to address the council?
Whoa, this thing grew. Dave Matthews, address is on file. I just read something recently about aid for Alzheimer's, except I can't remember what it was. I do remember, however, at the last council meeting, we had a full hour of public comment. I want this evening to clarify, expand on, and perhaps apologize for some of the comments that I made. I did not intend, when I was speaking, to indicate that I thought the Shoshone tribe was involved with the mafia. What I was trying to indicate was that those who are in charge of getting casinos and stuff like that built these days may have been at one time or in cahoots right now with a similar situation, a similar organization. And it's a deep subject that I'm not going to get into tonight because I can't prove anything without having to do some research, and I've had too many other problems these days to really get involved. During that public comment period, I was under the impression that public comment had already been closed, but it was not clear. It was not made clear to me that it was extended there was an extension because the time that we thought it started was expanded. So
It wasn't extended, Dave. It went for the exact hour.
I know,
Thank
but
you.
that was not clear. That was not made clear either by you or the council. But my comment during that time, I had in my mind that the public comment period had already been closed. So that's what I have to say this evening. I hope everybody, well, not everybody, but all the men and fathers had a great Father's Day. I had a visit from my daughter, and she just left this morning to get out of the heat. And it's not a bad idea. I think we all should. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Let me state for the record that public comment began at 6:10. So you've had your 5 minutes, and is there anyone else who wishes to have their time for public comment?
Stan Rotora. Did I hear earlier that item number 7 was taken off the agenda?
6 and 7 have been pulled.
Can you explain why?
Yeah,
7 was
I
pulled?
can't, Stan, I'll take full responsibility. I meant these to be discussion and vote items. And I did not fill out a detailed form for the clerk and prior to, so they ended up as discussion items. I don't want to have an hour-long discussion and then not be able to take a vote on it. So they need to be put back on the agenda as full action items so we can discuss and then vote. So it's my bad. I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay, thank you for that. Irrespective of that, I have heard a number of times that we have a tentative agreement with the Navy regarding the easement. I've requested it probably 2, 3, 4 times. I'm not going to stop requesting it. I haven't heard anything or any reason why that tentative agreement shouldn't be made public. I think the benefit of the public having input on that far exceeds any damage that could be done by the public having input into it. The Navy knows what's going on, and they're party to the talks. There are really two entities that are involved in this whole thing. That's the public on one side and the Navy on the other. The public has been kept totally in the dark what's going on, and I think since the public is the one who really bears the burden of paying the fees, they should be allowed to know what's in this tentative agreement. There's absolutely no reason not to. So one more time, I am requesting a copy. In fact, actually, not just for me, I'd like to see it made public. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment?
Name is Bob McDermott, 965 Jefferson Street, Ridgecrest. If I understand correctly, 5 and 6 are not going to be addressed today?
6 and 7.
Or 6 and 7? And that was about the decals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I had intended to put these comments on the record for that, but
Well, since it's not on the agenda, you have 5 minutes to make the
right,
comments you
and
care
it'll
to.
take 2, maybe. The City Council has been considering whether or not, or I guess they will, they haven't yet, to put "In God We Trust" decals on all police cars. Religion, in my opinion, can be summed up in 3 words, and I know some will agree, some won't, but that's the whole thing: the good, the bad, and the ugly. History is replete with examples of each of these 3 words. I am not here to debate religion. I would, however, like to share 4 reasons why I think putting any religious mottos on public vehicles is a bad idea. Number 1, it assumes that we, in that statement, are all of the same beliefs, which I know is not true. Number 2, it suggests all police officers share the same beliefs, which I will guess is not true. 3, it runs counter to the Founding Fathers' thoughts on separation of church and state. And 4, the police force is and should remain a secular entity that has no business espousing any religious tenets. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? God bless you. Oh, can I say that?
Dave Burdick, 1230 Mount Whitney Lane. Same issue that Mr. McDermott was addressing. We came down here under the assumption that this was going to be a discussion item, so I want to put some thoughts on the record. To place the motto "In God We Trust" in any tax-supported public place and on money is not a unifying principle. It's coercive and it's divisive. And I have problems with 3 of the 4 words in that motto. The first is the word God. Whose God are we talking about? Christian God, Muslim God, Jewish God, Jain God, Hindu, animists, all monotheists, all polytheists. What of those who believe in ancient gods like Thor, Zeus, and all the Greek gods? What about Native American gods? The second word, we. What about those who don't believe in any God or who are unsure of God? Or those who believe in different gods, like money or the flying spaghetti monster? Do we refer to the policeman in the car? Has she or he affirmed that he or she trusts in God? If so, which God? Thirdly, what do we trust about God? That he or she will make us rich? That there won't be natural disasters like floods or tsunamis or forest fires forced upon us by that God? Or that the policeman in the God we trust on his car won't shoot us? Or that he will believe our story that somebody has robbed us or beat up his wife or child? If there is no agreement about the meanings of those 3 words, this motto is an affront to a free democratic society. Nothing about it makes good sense for a pluralistic society like ours. At our foundations, we are a nation of laws, not religions. The U.S. Constitution doesn't even mention God, and the Declaration of Independence talks of nature's God, whatever that means. Do the proponents of this bad idea really mean in a Christian God we trust and all others can simply go to hell? Until the state actually adopts an official religion, Ridgecrest should stand for separation of religion and state and reject this proposal. If we need a motto, try "By law we govern." Sinclair Lewis is reported to have said that when fascism comes, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. Think about that and vote no when the time comes on this woefully misguided proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I live at 534 Atkins. I just wanted to address Councilman Martin's editorial piece in the Daily Independent. Personally, I felt incredibly offended. Number one, because I feel like it was a little too late, and I feel like you didn't take personal responsibility for your words. I'm not sure how much knowledge you actually have of rape, sexual abuse, and sexual assault, but as a survivor myself, and I'm sure there are a lot of survivors, if not in this room, then in this city, most people are abused or raped or sexually assaulted by someone that they know. Stranger rape or stranger abuse is a very small percentage. And I feel like your first comment should have been, what are we doing to serve the people of Ridgecrest? Instead, to me, personally, it came off like, how does Ridgecrest look on paper? So you're worried about how people are going to perceive them instead of the people that are actually living here. So it's very hard for me, to even be up here and say this, because it's not easy to talk about in a room full of strangers and say I've been sexually abused, but I also don't want to feel the shame. And when you say things like that, you make it harder for people in this community to come forward. Very, very small percentage of people come forward. Is it a false accusation? While I respect, your opinion, you need to educate yourself. I'm not here to do your emotional labor. They're not here to do your emotional labor. And it just stings because it's coming from a man. So I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment to that. First, I thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. So, and normally we do not need to clarify one-on-one up here, but I'll be delighted to because I'd like to. You read my response to that article in the paper? Okay. So, number one, I've had a rape in my immediate family, you understand, which I had to deal with for 2 years, okay? I'm not going to go any further detail than that. So I know very, very well all the implications of it, all the sensitivities of it. And years ago, we worked very closely with the Women's Center and Carol B. Croft and Karen. They do an outstanding job. So I'm very, very, very familiar and very, very, very sensitive, first and foremost. Secondly, the article that I put said one rape is too many. That's in the title of the article. It's not buried somewhere else. It's in the title of the article, clearly stated. My concern for it, and I didn't come across well, and I'll apologize for that. This was a brainstorming public workshop, all right? It's not a forum necessarily to be totally focused on political correctness or your every word, it's a brainstorming, and the police chief mentioned a bunch of startling statistics, followed by a gentleman in the back who couldn't come to the front because he had trouble walking. And I repeated back numerous things that he brought up so we could hear it. Somebody else clarified it. I didn't bring all those things up to begin with. The person in the audience did. I was making it so the people, and Peggy, I think, even mentioned it, that the people on the television need to see that and hear that. So a lot of the follow-up that went into that was following up on the gentleman in the audience. In the process of it, though, and hearing him and seeing that alarming number, I'm alarmed too, because what I didn't say in the article, because in articles you have 500 words and you can't tell much of a story in 500 words. So we're all up here gagged and limited and, sound bites, and then people start posting stuff on Facebook. I couldn't tell the full story. I've had two engineers on base in the past year that have sent me some alarming reports where they get these numbers posted from the FBI, and they do he sent me this big chart showing this detailed comparison that Ridgecrest numbers were outstandingly high on a state level and a national level. And then somebody else sent me a video showing Ridgecrest as people do this all the time. They're not well-made videos, and the sources are not that credible. But people take these numbers. The video is horrible. I won't go into details. It makes us look awful. This alarms high numbers without any form of substantiation or qualification. Greatly alarms the existing citizenry, and it does alarm people looking at a community. They look at rape and murder before they look at anything else. And when you throw out a number like a murder's a murder, that doesn't need a committee to qualify that. But when you say rapes and no substantiation and a large number like 31, okay? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but my image historically goes to some sort of a forceful, direct attack. I mean, and that's alarming, because if that's the case, we need to find out what the problem is. Do we have a stalker in town? Do we have someone we need to solve the problem right now. But the issue was, unless you define why are these rapes, what are they, where did they come from, what's causing the problem, how are we going to fix anything? How's the chief going to fix anything? Well, we're not. So the point, my intent, and I went back and looked at it. I said some things wrong in brainstorming, and that this is a number that stings, and that was not intended to minimize victims or minimize rapes. It's an attempt that the number is shocking, and I wanted to know what comprised it. So when I asked the chief to please elaborate, he said it's basically what he said on the table, that it's and I know he's guarded too, because you don't want to re-victimize and you don't want to do that. We went several directions during that meeting, but the bottom line is, Ms. Stevens said, I think what we're trying to get to is maybe founded or unfounded, right? Something, rather than just saying there's leaving people to believe that we have 31, mass rapists in town or something. And so I agreed with that. She also said that rape from any source is a rape. I totally agreed with that. Of course I do. I was just trying to substantiate it to some degree. So Jed substantiated by saying that most are unfounded. So did our city manager. Most are, in fact, unsubstantiated, and there's about 5 categories of that. And if you'd like to talk to Jed, he'll explain them to you. I don't have 1,500 words in an article to explain that. There's about 5 categories of unsubstantiated, okay? Those that can't be proven in a court, those this. So Jed qualified. The other thing Jed said, he said at the meeting and afterwards, he said, I'm seeing where you're going. Maybe we put the percentage confirmed or founded, because what Jed and the city manager said is that these are reported. Anytime anyone reports it, period, it goes in that big number, whether it's substantiated, followed up, investigated. And so all I was trying to get at, please understand, is just an explanation of what the problem is so we can try to fix it. That's all. Now, I talked to Carol Beecroft and to Karen Stone afterwards. Jed also informed me that the law changed. The definition of rape changed in 2013. Rape used to be forceful, attacking, and rape used to be very definitive. But they changed the definition. Yes?
I hate to interrupt you. I hear that you're trying to communicate something, but this isn't on the agenda, so we're only supposed to respond briefly.
All right, I'll wrap it up. Anyway, the definition changed, including many, many more categories that were never considered rape, so the numbers went up nationally as well as locally. Then I further talked to Karen and Carol, and they said, well, there's other issues. There's mental health issues. There's child custody issues, all sorts of. It just got too complicated. You can't do that. So the bottom line is that what Carol Beecroft said and what we agreed on, and that's not even in the article, is that we put something like reported rapes or alleged, and then a paragraph at the bottom that explains all that whatever the minor things are. If people call, just something to not alarm the public. Okay, it's not to minimize, it's to clarify. And that's what I put in the article. And I apologize if in the brainstorming I came across wrong. I've had a rape in my immediate family. I'm sensitive to this. I understand it, and I appreciate your concern. All right, thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
Stacy Jackson. First of all, I'd like to echo that I agree with the sentiments from the first two gentlemen about the In God We Trust sticker. I don't think it's a good use of our police cars. I think if you're going to put any kind of sticker on there, perhaps it should be a suicide hotline or a veterans call center number, something that's useful and helpful to the public. Secondly, you just had a woman, Mr. Martin, say that she was sexually abused. You showed no empathy, no compassion. You ranted and raved from the dais for a good 5 minutes, maybe more. I think that your interactions with the public can show empathy, compassion, sympathy. Perhaps you should have said, I'm very sorry for what you went through. I will do better. I promise you I will do better. That's what people want. That's what your constituents want. That's what the women of Ridgecrest want. I expect more from you, except you defending yourself at the dais for 5 minutes, ranting and raving.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Yeah, good evening, Councilman Mike Neal. Just to once again back up what Stan has to say about the wastewater plant situation. It is way past time that we had some action on this item. A solution to it is really very simple. We just put the plant on city land, and we don't do a bunch more negotiating with the Navy. If the Navy can't respond sooner than this, then why deal with them? I don't understand it. So just to say this, since we won't have the discussion, part of the reason that I came up here tonight for, and to say that I believe it was 7 years ago, they raised the rates for the sewer fund. And the reason for raising the rates was so that they could begin to garner funds to build a plant. They were also told, well, we need to ramp it up some because we need a little bit higher reserve, not a $27 million reserve. And I've already stated, I believe, twice before this council that over a span of 30 years at the rate that we are profiting off of the citizens on the sewer fund tax, that we're going to have $120 million we would have taken in. That's way more, clearly, than we need to do. So it would seem that if we can't get some action towards actually building a plant, getting decisions made, agreements made, and things finalized to build a plant, that we need to cut back the sewer tax rates and be fair to the citizens. See, it seems simple. The other issue, I don't really have a lot to say about the proposal of putting the In God We Trust motto on the police cars, except if you look up on the wall behind you, you see that's been in city council now, chambers for, I don't know, probably 16 years, maybe longer. So putting it on the police cars should just be a reiteration of what we display before the public on a regular basis for everyone that comes in here, not just city council meetings. And this sentiment of let's have a totally secular democracy of some form, well, if you had a totally secular government, that means you would never at all refer to any religious standards for your laws. And so that would leave all your laws to the imagination of man, which logically means you probably wouldn't have any laws because everybody had their own different opinion about which law you needed to have, what was right, what was wrong, and how it's wrong when it's executed and so forth and so on, to the nth detail. But we do have those standards. We've had those standards for a long time, and it's pretty clear that everybody derives a standard of some of the simpler things like don't kill and don't steal, stuff like that. And they didn't just dream it up all on their own. They woke up one day as a child, and all of a sudden they grew up and said, oh, yeah, I'll just figure it out. We shouldn't kill or steal. No, they got it from another source. And it's not too hard to figure out what that source is. It's a God, the God in heaven. It's not too hard to also figure out, actually read your history and read the writings of the founding fathers and figure out who that particular God was. It was the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit of the Christian faith, and backed up, behind that with the years and years and hundreds of years of laws and so forth, so on, directions from the ancient Jewish laws, which had the same foundation we're talking about here. So you either got to have that, or you got to have nothing as far as laws go. And then, I guess if we do that, then you guys wouldn't have to worry about being up here, would you? Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Ronald Porter. I came up to stand about this idea of God and secularism in our country. Well, first off, you have to understand, as our Supreme Court had no jurisdiction whatsoever to touch that issue. But most important is our history is completely full of, including our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, says the Creator. You can use whatever terms you want. They say the Constitution. These documents don't have God in them. Go read them. They're signed the year of the Lord. When they did our Constitutional Convention, the Bible was mentioned 58 times by the conventioneers. We have a history. In fact, probably 80% of our founders wrote letters on why we needed a religious foundation as a moral compass for this nation. It's not that someone's trying to offend somebody because you don't believe in God, or you believe in God, or you believe a different God. In fact, they thought it so important when they wrote the First Amendment. It says, Congress shall write no law establishing a religion. But even more important, at that time, there were state religions. They didn't interfere with the state. In order for the Constitution to be violated, First Amendment says, Congress shall write a law. I don't know of any law ever written. And besides, if someone doesn't believe in the Lord or believe in God, their God, why would they be offended? They say, well, look at that silly little pagan. It makes absolutely no sense. It's about controlling other people. People that believe in their God, they don't want to interfere with somebody. They just believe it. And as Mr. Neal said, without that foundation, and our forefathers intended that we have that foundation, and that it be based on the Judeo-Christian values, there's not a question in history, as our moral compass. But it doesn't interfere with anybody. That's why we have the liberty and freedom. To try and say separation, basically what they're saying when an atheist stands up and says, I want secularism. What they're really saying is, I want to take my Bible out to public and I can preach all I want and you can't preach. If this is my Bible as a Christian, that's one thing. This is my Bible as an atheist, but I can take it and preach anywhere I want because that's protected speech. And even the courts have found that atheism has to be considered a secular or religious issue. You can't have one side to one coin. I mean, I'm going to go to what Peggy said right off the beginning at this meeting tonight. We can get along. Because this person doesn't believe in the Lord, what difference does it make? No one's out there trying to tell them they have to go to church, but they want to tear down the church. Our founders clearly intended, without any question whatsoever, that religion and pastors had an influence in our government. There's no question about it. In fact, our country was basically founded by pastors. Go look up the Black Robe Regiment. We have to study the history. If you don't know the history, you don't understand the basis. No one wanted to go round people up and make them go to church. In fact, most of the states that had state religions, they sooner changed it. One of the greatest things to read on religion was Madison when he wrote it for Virginia. They try and pretend that that's a federal issue, but it wasn't. The Supreme Court stepped completely out of its bounds when they wrote the separation of church and state, because it was never intended. And they based it on a letter to the Dansbury Baptists that Thomas Jefferson responded to. And his statement was basically, for all reasonable purposes, is, I know you like this, but we really don't want to touch that arena as far as making rules or laws out of the federal government regarding any specific religion whatsoever. But he didn't say, oh, we want to escort you out because you're a Christian. We want to do this because you're a Christian, or because you're a Jew, or because you're a Muslim, or whatever it was. They had no intention of it. And for them to pretend that they're somehow harmed by this, it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, well, why don't we just put it, and let's go with our founding document and say, in the Creator we trust. There you go. That one's right in the Declaration of Independence, which is our founding document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening. Scott Miller. My address is on file. Following is my opinion, and just a friendly reminder that, in my opinion, we still do have an active MSA, and I would like to remind council to think about that when you're back behind closed doors. Part two, I understand what Mr. Wallace was doing a moment ago. However, that time he used should not affect the time for the good people of Ridgecrest. And I ask, Madam Mayor, that that time that he used be put on the back end of any public comment. And with that, thank you.
I will. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. Stephen Birtle, 224 Oasis Drive. In regards to the comments made about the whole foundation of our government being founded on religion, who here has ever heard of the Treaty of Tripoli? Anyone? Article 11. It states, the United States is not a Christian nation and would not let the fact that Tripoli was a Muslim nation interfere with their relationship. That alone states that we were not founded on any religious basis, if you actually read the full article. And thus, we shouldn't worry about the whole concept of in God we trust on the police vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we will go into council announcements. Does anyone have a council announcement?
I just one of the things on the "In God We Trust," I wanted it, and it's my fault for not putting it in the notes. That's why we pulled it off to put it in full details for everybody to see. So I've already said I meant to do that, but that would not be funded at all by any public money. The cost for it is very, very low, and it'll be 100% private.
That isn't on the agenda, though.
Well, I know neither was the comment when they made it. I should have made it right after they said that. I just wanted to clarify that one point. That's all. Okay.
Okay, is there any other council announcements? Okay, seeing no council announcements, we will go to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar, be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. Do any members of the council wish to have any item pulled after I repeat them? Proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated June 5th, 2018. And number 3, proposed action to approve the draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority Special Budget Workshop dated May 29th. Any member of the council wish to have any of these items pulled? Does the public wish to have any of these items pulled? Okay, then is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, the next item is proposed action to adopt by a resolution of the City Council and the Successor Redevelopment Agency adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2019-20, establishing appropriations, estimating revenues, and establishing the policies by which the government shall be amended. Who is going to address that? Are you going to come up, Cherie?
Yes, I'll take the initial part of it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, on May 29th, we had a special workshop to address our proposed FY20 budget. During the budget process, each department head made a presentation regarding their departments, their budgeting levels, their accomplishments from the previous year, as well as some of the things that they wanted to accomplish in the following year that were within the budget. Through that process, staff left with 2 items that council had requested that we address prior to the approval of the entire budget. The 2 items were fees. One was a facility user fee for the sports organization, and the second item was an increase in our business license fees. What I'd like to address first is our proposed fee structure for the youth sports organizations for a user fee. Since May 29th, the Quality Life Committee has addressed this issue twice. And through that process, we've come up with staff has come up with a recommendation to council for their consideration. Initially, staff had proposed a $300 a week user fee for baseball, football, and soccer for their use of the facilities as a whole. Through the last 2 meetings and through information from that budget workshop, we've come back to you with a proposal for a phased-in fee process where the fees are phased in over a 3-year period of time, beginning in FY20 for $100 per week and then ending in FY22 at $300 per week. One of the concerns that the sports organizations had was where was this funding going to go? Where was this fee that was collected going to go? There was some concern about that it would go into the general fund, which was the recommendation at the time. However, through discussions in the committee meetings, what we're recommending is those fees that are paid by the organizations for the use of those facilities will go into a holding fund that will be collected and will be used for major repairs, 10,000 plus, or improvements to the facilities. One of the things that we're looking at very closely is how can we manage our facilities and make sure that they stay in the best condition as possible for the organizations that use them. So what we're recommending to council would be to establish this fee and begin to collect it this year. However, there was one caveat. The football organization has already collected its fees for the year, and the consensus of the organizations that were there and the Quality Life Committee was to waive that fee for the first year for football so they wouldn't have to go back and collect the fee from their participants, which would be somewhat problematic. So what I have before you is what's up on the screen, and I'll be willing to answer or entertain any questions regarding that before we move forward on the business license fee.
Is there questions from council?
Yeah, in this proposal, how does that affect our overall budget as far as, it was a very, very closely balanced budget.
It won't. The increase in the business license fees will make up for the amount that we're not going to collect on the facility use fees. Okay. And like I said, the facility use fees, our recommendation is to be able to put them in a holding account, which means they will grow over time. They'll be accountable. They'll be part of the budgetary process. We're also recommending that the expenditures of those funds go through the Quality Life Committee prior to coming to council for either an outside the budget process approval or during the budget process. That those funds be discussed. And one of the things is that if we have an organization that's using Leroy Jackson facility, and if they're paying those weekly fees there, those fees will actually go into an account specific for that field, and same for the Kerr-McGee fields. So we'll actually be collecting funds to be able to attribute funds for the upkeep of both of those fields.
Is there any other council comment? Is there public comment?
Ron Porter, I'm assuming you have the whole budget up for this? Or we're just going to discuss this one item and the whole budget later?
We're going to discuss this one item right now. We'll
Okay,
discuss, as the other items come up, we will.
Well, this says budget. The whole budget's going to be approved.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to so if I want to come up and talk about the other part of the budget, I can?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My recommendation here, and I have a problem with this, the money should just go to reduce the amount that we actually put into the recreation fund, and it should go into the general recreation fund. They use the facility on a continual basis, and they shouldn't get special interest just for their money going into a pot for something else later. It's an accounting problem, and there's nothing wrong with it. They use it every day. They ought to pay for it every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on that particular item? Okay.
Next item is business license fees. As we stated during the workshop, we have not increased our fees since 1980. As part of our ordinance, we have the ability to do an annual cost of living increase on the fees. Staff had initially recommended a cost of living increase of 3.1%. City Council requested staff come back and look at that issue, revisit it. Staff did so. We did bring this up during our Finance Committee meeting this week. What staff is recommending is a 5% increase this year for FY20.
15?
Oh, 15, I'm sorry, 15. A 15% increase, and so we have our top four, and I don't know why this, it looked good on my screen before, I guess it showed up on here. When you look at what the current business license for retail sales, it's $60. It'll be increasing to $69. If we'd had a full CPI increase since 1980, it would be $248. Same thing for the professional license. It would go from $60 to $69. If we had done an increase each year, it would have been $248. Licensed contractor would go from $66 to $76, and then handyman the same. So staff's recommendation would be to approve the increase in those fees. It was brought up to the Finance Committee, and there was a consensus with that thought. Any questions from council?
Any questions from the public on this particular item?
Scott Miller, address is on file. Ron, I may have missed it. Is that ongoing at 10? Would you say 15%, or is that just at this one time? 15%?
Just 15% this year. And each year we can take a look at it. The ordinance allows us to increase it by the CPI every year. Prior to this, we have not done that at all. So the council can, over a period of time, increase the business fees, but it'll be addressed each year.
Okay. So right now we're just talking about the one time until next time. So,
Right.
okay.
I mean, starting in FY20, it'll be. Starting this next year, it'll be $69, and it'll stay $69 until council goes
Revisits
through
it
the public process to increase it. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott, we addressed it in for the Finance Committee. Did you want to say anything?
Oh, no, other than the goal here is to not, to have little small incremental increases on the fee increases each year, so that we don't have this same issue where we go 10 years and we're so far out of gradient that any big change is going to be dramatic to everybody. So we don't want to do that either. So that's why we came up with the 15% and then small incremental increases each year to stay current with it, and which we granted should have been doing all along, but we are correcting these issues. So that's it.
Okay, any other council comments? Any other public comments on this particular item? Okay.
Okay, Madam Mayor, the next would be just to discuss briefly the resolution, which would be approving the budget. Now, keep in mind, the budget is a living document, that it can be changed, as you all know, every quarter. Staff, the finance director, and myself meet with the Finance Committee. We discuss the status of revenue and expenditures. basically for the purpose of if we need to make adjustments mid-year, we can. So keep that in mind. With this budget, we have presented a balanced budget. As for our budgeting and expenditure policies, they are the same as they were last year. Nothing has changed. So with that, I would request the council to, obviously, if there's any sort of other questions regarding the budget from the public, I would, be willing to entertain those. But otherwise, I would request that the council move forward with the approval of the proposed FY20 budget as it was presented in the budget workshop on May 29th, including the two items that the staff came back and addressed.
Is there any other council comments? Public comment?
Wrong reporter. Excuse me. Most of it's just a question and has exhibit item E in the agenda. What does that mean? It says new fee, old fee. It says fire impact fees, traffic impact fees. Are these for new houses being built or new businesses?
Correct. This is part of our fee structure that's approved every year, and those items that you mentioned did have a CPI increase.
No, but I'm saying, is this if, in other words, these fees apply if I was building a new house or a new business? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. I have a problem with that, especially in our world today. I understand they want to do it, but it's just a way of adding taxes and costing us more money to bring people want to come out here and they keep wanting to grow. I don't particularly think we need to grow, but infrastructure, it's something that needs to be said. Infrastructure that when someone comes, it's not existent for them, and I understand the reasoning. But that's the same thing when we let immigrants in this country. The infrastructure isn't there. Each one of us that were born in this country, our infrastructure started when we were born. I understand the need, but I think we need to look at why we do this a little more. I won't go on any further with that. Because I couldn't imagine it said trips, ends, and it talks about travel, and that's why I couldn't figure out any of it. I do have one question on salaries, though. The salaries here shows the director of Parks and Recreation has the highest salary.
That's not true.
That's what it says right here.
Say that.
Pardon? No, oh, okay. I mean, as far as the director, I don't know if he's actually a director yet or whatever. He started out as something else that wasn't quite a director. But it didn't make sense that he would make more money salary-wise than the chief of police or the head of public works.
Are you sure you're looking at the same document, page 113?
Yes.
So he sees 5,800, and then they all say 5,400.
Yeah, I think the step that you need to be concerned about the most is step 10. And I'll be frank with you, I do not believe we've hired anybody in at step 1 in any of those department head positions, because you're not going to pay a chief of police $31 an hour.
I know. I was just making a note. I'm not complaining or anything. It just was rather strange.
I agree. We could adopt it, but at the end of the day, the Parks and Rec director makes substantially less than the other department heads.
I understand. I was just bringing up something because it looks strange and something. It's not I'm complaining. It's just when you find something, it can't be addressed if you don't bring it up. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments?
Yes, just for a matter of clarification here, I was looking at more particularly the Measure V funding and uses of Measure V. And so I found I'm on page 69 at the moment, and it's a pretty ambiguous line item down there at the very end above total expenditures. It just says other financing uses, and that's hovered at 1.8, 1.9, but 1920 they're projecting that to be $3 million. It should be nice to have a little more descriptive so we know what it was.
Yeah, Mr. Neal, the reason why that number is so large because we're bringing $1 million in unallocated or unexpended Measure V money from this year. Since we didn't do a road project, we're putting it in this year's budget. That is reflected on page 13 at the top, when it talks about budgeted reserves. If you look at the top 1, 2, 5, 5, 6 lines down, it says Measure V reserves.
Measure V reserves.
You're looking at $1 million being brought in. That is being brought into the public works budget to do an additional $1 million worth of road projects this year.
Okay, and so I assume that also correlates down in Fund 102, Measure V, the 1920, $3 million. I mean, the numbers are exactly the same, $3,100,787. It's just that when I've done this before, so I can kind of correlate this, but other people look at this and they just see some of this other finance. Exactly what is that going to be used for? This is going to be street repairs.
Yes,
sir. Other financing uses. And
yes, it'll be for street repair. That was in Mr. Lauer's presentation on the 29th.
Okay, so but still, all in all, that particular year, you're bringing in the $1 million reserve, so you're still basically going to be spending for that particular year out of the income from the sales tax. It's going to be about 50-50 for police and streets. Looking at the trend, it's 1.8 mil.
Yeah, the police are a little bit more. I think it's 55-45 or something like that. It's pretty close.
Okay. All right. That's all.
For further information, you might want to go back and look at the recording of the budget hearings we had, because Bard gave us a whole entire list of all the information of all the projects that we're going to be able to use that money. If you want it more specific.
For those slides?
Yes.
Well, I'll ask you to give me the slides. It may be actually easier to do that. I'll send you an email, Bard.
Is there any other public comment on the budget? Okay, is there any other council comment on the budget? Okay, then is there a motion to approve?
I have one more question. So aside from the park fees, usage fees, and the business license fees, were there any other changes from the budget hearing to this?
No, ma'am. Those are the only two items that council requested, and we addressed both of them.
Okay.
No other fees were changed from the time of the workshop until today.
Okay. And none of these 12 things on the
No,
list?
those are just the
Standard.
language that has to do with the attachments to the budget, our GAN revenue limits, our budgeting procedures, our list of approved positions, salary schedule. None of that has been changed from when we had our last meeting on the 29th.
Okay. Because I know previously, because number 12, it says all previous and conflicting resolutions are hereby rescinded, revoked, and made null. I think it was last year when we approved the budget, there was a statement saying any use that's not in here needed to come back to city council if it was transferred to different departments.
Right.
Is that still?
Yeah, that language is still in there.
Okay.
We discussed that in our finance committee too. So,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Okay, is there any other council
The only other
comments?
comment I have is that I was going to push that we don't charge the young sports activity anything because I think it's vital to the community. I think they bring in income from out-of-town families and organizations into our community. It's kind of a source of community pride. It absolutely is a source of community pride. All towns rally around their young people's teams, and that's what's outstanding. So it's part of the morale and part of the spirit of the town. And after hearing all of the very impassioned pleas by both the folks who give hundreds of hours of their time, I was pretty much ready to go. I don't want their fees to be increased at all. But in the same token, especially when we're talking about, we have all sorts of things that put the hammer down on hundreds of thousands for this contract and that and this Wildan and that and this road thing for that, and then it comes to the kids and we're spending 15 hours arguing over $17,000. To me, means silly. But okay, I also understand that Ron is trying to accomplish what he wants to do too, and that is we have so little money and the park assessment didn't pass, and he's trying to do a phase-in, and so I guess that's a nice compromise. And at the end of next year, when we reevaluate, I might vote zero or we just hold it at the $100 increase. So anyway, that's the only concern. I was going to vote no for no increase for them, but I'm trying to hear your side too, Ron. So
We had 2 long quality of life meetings, and both the gentlemen were in attendance along with some others, and this was kind of what we came to a consensus to agree to. So.
All right.
I'd like to point out too that one of the things I think was really a good end result of this was that the money that the fees that they're going to be charged is going to go back into a fund that they have direct support and ability to pick what the improvements that they need. It's like direct money right back into the program, and I think it set rapport with these youth group leaders, and they acknowledge too that they want to come back next year and on a repeat basis, not just right at budget time, but and stay abreast of any issues that they have with the parks. I think it's bringing these two entities closer together, and I think that to me one of the big points here was that money, yes, it's a fee, it's a modest fee, but it's going 100% back into their usage, their needs, their wants, and they can come to the Parks Committee and review what it is that they want to do, and we can work it out with them. So I think it's an end result, a very positive start to working with these youth groups. So anyway.
Okay, any other council comments? Okay, then a motion.
I move.
Second.
Five ayes, motion carries.
Can I add a comment? Thank you for making it a very friendly document, and for all of the department heads taking the time to make a presentation too. That really helped, I think, all of this go a lot smoother than several years ago. So, thank you.
Okay, the next item is discussion and provide guidance to the city's representative on the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Scott?
So yes, currently there's, as I had reiterated last time, there's 3 new modeling scenarios that have been put out and have been made available to the PAC and TAC meeting. So it's just a continuation of that. I'm sure there'll be discussions in tomorrow's meeting and then over the next week or two on those new modeling scenarios. So the other item that was that's of interest was the drilling in the southwest region of the aquifer. That is an ongoing process. There's been a little bit of setback, based on funds and depth of the well that's being drilled. So, but that is it is in progress, but based on funding and depth, it's going to be set back a little bit. Aside from that, I have no further input, so I don't know if council has any questions or
Council? Okay, public? Okay, then we will go to committee reports. City org?
Did not meet.
I'm sorry?
We have not met.
Okay. Finance committee, Scott?
Finance committee did meet, and we discussed the youth sports field fees. We also discussed the business license fees, which everybody, I think, got fully informed on tonight. And so that was the main topic, and that was it on finance.
Infrastructure?
We talked. Do we have an agenda for next Monday? Okay, so we'll be meeting instead of the fourth Thursday, because the next 2 months we have conflicts, so we're going to meet on on Monday next week for Infrastructure Committee at 5 o'clock.
Parks and Rec and Quality of Life?
Yes. I reported on our regular meeting last time, but we did have the extra meeting where the only agenda item was discussing the fee as we just approved.
Okay, Youth Advisory?
They're done for the school year.
Okay, Action?
Done till September.
Okay, RACVB?
A quick report. So the Eastern California Museum
Your
on that
mic
top.
is off.
Doug advised that the directors will be working with the director at the Eastern California Museum on having a display rack at their museum with Ridgecrest, including Ridgecrest, and the Eastern Sierra Cultural Heritage Alliance. Concerning that, Doug advised that directors, along with Inyo County supervisors, are in the planning stages to be involved in collaboration with the museums along Highway 395 North. International Powwow, Doug discussed that with the Desert Region concerning brochures distributed at the Convention Center in Anaheim and at the Visit California booth. In the California Welcome Center, Doug updated directors on this and advised that the letter of intent sent and received by the Welcome Center for RACV to submit a request for proposal. And so they're doing that. Billboards on Highway 395. They're going to be working on creating graphics for a new skin to replace the current graphic, which is the hotel room with bed, which didn't go over so well with everybody, to have new visitor campaign, as well as for the Petroglyph Festival billboard, which was damaged by recent winds. And Flicks, the film liaison group, Doug advised that he and Elizabeth will be attending this upcoming board meeting. It'll be hosted by the Hollywood Reporter magazine in L.A. Filming, the June board film report, Ramon advised that over 5,000 people reached for a social media post on Iron Man that was filmed in the Alabama hills. That's pretty cool. For the month of June, there were 5 productions. Inyo Airport, for June, there were 3 productions, and the total community spend for June was $2,214,338. That's it.
Okay, other committees, boards, and commissions?
You skipped economic development.
I'm sorry, I did skip that. Thank you.
That's okay. We met last week. We discussed the ICSC conference, which I reported on before. We also talked about having a Skype presentation from Buxton, some analytical data that we can use to help recruit in some more businesses, as well as it would be beneficial to existing businesses for tracking what products people are interested in, as well as helping them with marketing. And then also Main Street America, we discussed having them give a presentation. And we discussed some about downtown and possibility of bringing back wine walks and other things. And the development guide is posted online under planning. I think that's the right spot. Yeah. So the development guide is, and it's a working document, so we can always add to it as we see more things need to be added.
Okay, now other committees, boards, or commissions?
I have KernCog tomorrow night.
Any others? Okay, city manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. I want to give you an update on the wastewater treatment facility. Our attorney has completed the draft of the operational agreement. It was provided to the Navy representation this morning. We do have 2 meetings set in July, one on July 8th, another on July 11th, to continue discussions on this matter. That's all I have to report at this point in time.
Okay. Future agenda items, anyone?
Oh, yes, I'd like to re-put these 2 items that we had on before, but under action, instead of discussion, and I'll provide the additional information that the public needs. Okay?
Okay, Mayor and City Council comments?
I do want to make one comment. After last meeting, when we voted on whether or not to require the median on Drummond, I voted because I wanted to require one along the first section there. That's the reason I voted that way. I received some criticism that I voted not to have any medians in front of my buildings on Ridgecrest Boulevard, but I voted to require another business to have them in front of theirs. I just want to set the record straight that I did not attend any meetings when the Ridgecrest Boulevard project was being discussed. I never voted one way or the other on anything on Ridgecrest Boulevard. I understand several merchants did, but I was not one of them, so I did not try to put something on someone else's property that I voted not to put on mine.
I wanted to address that also. The comments I got from members of the public saying that because when we did this, I was sitting down there as the public, and there was probably 6, maybe 18, I was going to say maybe 18 people who attended those meetings. None of us were asked whether we wanted the medians or not. There was never any discussion of the medians or the bulb outs, other than the fact that when, after it was all approved, the drive-through dairy and Farrah and Ashley met with, because we had then been elected to the council, both Mike and I met with them. We were told that if we took those bulb outs out or those medians out, that we, because they were required by law, we might be personally responsible for that were there to be any issues. Mike and I then said, there's no way we want to be personally responsible for this. And to say that there's been some texts and things said that we did not put it in front of ours. You got to remember that was a Caltrans issue, and the Caltrans people and Kerncog approved and funded much of that development on Ridgecrest Boulevard. There was no personal input on both Mike's and my part before nor after. And when we were told if we asked for those things to be out, we might be personally responsible were there to be an accident, there was no way I was going to do that. So I wanted to just make that thing clear and say that I voted against the median I voted against not putting the median on Drummond because I want it not to be done on a project-by-project basis. I want to have the council and staff look at the whole project, the whole idea of medians and where they belong, not on a one-by-one, because then we're subject to, well, you like me, so you agreed with that, and you don't like me, and so therefore you didn't agree with this, and I wanted it to be solely on on a collective basis and have staff look at it and not looking at it individually like we did that night. So consequently, that was a reason for my no vote. Okay, any other council or mayor comments?
I just want to clarify one thing you did state. After the Ridgecrest Boulevard project was done, I did publicly display my disdain for bulb outs.
I think we all did. We did, both of us. Yes. Okay. Now, no other comments? Okay, we are going to adjourn but go back into closed session. So I appreciate you all coming and thank you for your input.